maybe one of y'all might have been out there waiting for me to come live at the intended time. I am truly nocturnal in these days. What can I say? But I don't fight it. I just, the church is always telling you to be up at night praying. So maybe there's something to this with the shamanic experience. Somebody called me a pastor the other day, and I was like, that's really funny. That's quite entertaining, if I'm honest. But I know that I am called to share my experience and to read scripture just about daily. I know that I am called to intersect Christianity and Ifa Yoruba cosmology. I know that I'm called to uplift healing medicine, sound medicine, energy medicine, linguistic medicine, vibrational medicine, physical medicine, herbology, earth medicine. I'm a medicine woman. I'm a shaman, techie shaman. Who are you? What's your core identity? Who's your soul self? I would love to know. Thank you to all the supporters. We're at 200, guys. And for somebody, that might be a really small number, but for me, it's a big deal. Okay. My sister's been trying to get me to do YouTube for literally 15 years. Literally. So my daughter's 17 now, so I think it's about time. No, but we've been coming on here much more consistently over the last several months, especially this year. It's been much of an upgrade. Shout out to Melinda Yoruba for making that possible. Shout out to my mommy and my daddy and my other daddy and my other mom and my siblings. Love you all. Shout out to Wumi. Shout out to CY. Shout out to Des. Ayodele, my beloveds. Let me turn the music down. Now that I know there's actually folks here. Hi, welcome. How y'all doing? Come on in, come on in. It's good to see you. Let me know where you're watching from. Sending you blessings, sending prayers your way. Super power, dust, magic, healing, vibrational uplift, thriving, community, safety, connection, energy, electricity, laughter, dance, nourishment, food. I wish you all the good things. Hey DC. What does mod mean, Nevin? Welcome, welcome. I appreciate y'all's love. So if you don't know me, if this is your first time here, my name is Olori Lolade Santillimani, founder of Nora Labs, creator of Portal X, founding monk at Soul Medicine Sanctuary. I just love to pray and praise and learn and study, and it's just my addiction. And so I'm always seeking to know more about the divine and to experience the divine more deeply and to share what I know, especially if for no one else but my daughter, who is 17 now and who's a superstar in her own right. And I'm working on carving in the edges. So if you have kids, if you are an educator, I'd love to hear from you. Someone asked me, yes, I'm a business owner. I'm a business owner at Nora Labs. We inspire and operationalize Black liberation. That's liberation from within through art, tech, and community building. We've worked with all sorts of organizations. I gotta stop looking at the comments because y'all will distract me. We've worked for and with so many different organizations and communities, just seeking to design a liberated reality, seeking to reprogram our reality through art, through visual, through sound, through music, through movement, through community, through intimacy, helping us to come back to one another and to have more intimacy with our soul selves and with our communities. So liberation from within, helping you to know yourself, to love yourself, to recognize yourself, to recognize yourself, to recognize yourself, and uplift yourself, liberate yourself, exist free. That's why we're here. That's what the calling is. Okay. So I appreciate y'all. Appreciate all the love. Thank you so, so much. It means a lot. Every little bit of love makes you want to come back and to share some more. So today we are talking about ethical non-monogamy. Y'all see that I'm really into the topic. I've been talking about it a lot. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna just move with it because I'm getting some really intense education in the relationship structure right now. And I will explain more about what I mean by that. But I really came into understanding the concept about 4 years ago of ethical non-monogamy when I started to identify as queer. When I started to like identify with my queer side, and I started to learn how queer folk view love so radically different. Love and intimacy and relationships so radically different from heteronormative folk. And I was like, whoa, okay, what a whole new world. Okay. Because some of it is scary at first because it's like, oh my God, y'all do that? Why, what, how, you know? Some of it is scary, but a lot of it is love. A lot of it is like, how can we be more intimate with each other emotionally? How can we be more safe with each other? How do we take care of each other? Because queer folk had to design healthy families to survive. Let me repeat that. Queer folk had to design healthy families to survive. It wasn't just play for queer folk of yesteryear. They had to find ways to be loved and to share love and to be in community with folks who could take care of them. And I'm not saying all queer environments are perfect. Don't get it twisted. But we have this evolution into healthier, more healed intimacy because of queer love, primarily. I'm going to tell you that. I'm not giving y'all no more "We love you" take clips until you send me something that you made. I want to see what you did with the last ones. I don't know who you are. I love you guys for being here, but yeah, I want to see some of those clips before I make you another one. Can we make that deal? Let me know what you think, Easton. Okay, so I'm just gonna do a few quick breaths. We're just gonna come back to center. Amen. Amen. Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. Hallelujah. My Creator, Most High, Divine Infinity, Owner of the universe, Infinite Artist, Lover of my soul, best friend to my spirit. I praise you for your magnificent beauty. I praise you for your mercy over my life. I praise you because I won the Oxygen Lottery today. Thank you for this breath in my lungs, this fire for goodness, this force for change. Thank you for the 1 million plus of my prayers that you've answered. I honor you and I ask that you show me the way this moment to ease into your prepared blessings for me. I receive supernatural benefits from infinite sources. I receive surprise blessings from infinite sources. I receive tangible evidence of notable miracles fueling my success today. I turn my blessings into blessings for my community. I thank you that all the elements work in my favor. Every breath in the universe contributes to my divine evolution and upliftment. I thank you because this moment and every moment I have cause to celebrate. Your riches are infinite. Within me, your riches are infinite. All around me, your riches are infinite. For you are the owner of all hearts, all minds, all breath, all power. All glory and honor belong only to you. All silver and gold belong only to you. All platinum and diamonds belong only to you. All land belongs to you, for you're the one true currency. I inherit your kingdom with gratitude that you've selected me worthy to be a conduit of your riches for all whom I encounter. As your infinite benefits flow into me, overflowing in my life, I share my love, my heart, my joy, my peace, my abundance with all whom I encounter. For all my needs are met. All my needs are met. All my needs are met, and my desires spontaneously fulfilled. Yeshua's mighty name. Ashe. Ashe. All right, Ashe. May it be abundance and blessings for every last one of us. I appreciate y'all so much. Okay, I'm going to tell you what we're going to be talking about as far as is ENM for you. So my goal is to really help us understand this sort of, emerging relationship structure and to let it help us think about relationships. Use E&M to better study Black, especially Black and Indigenous relationships, because I think it just breaks the box open and it just gives space and identity and language to a completely different way of engaging romantically. And I love it. I love it for the openness. I love it for the exploration. I love it for the curiosity. I love it for the safety, for the care, for the intentionality. I love what I see that E&M makes possible. I'm not going to say that everybody does E&M well or does it perfectly, but I think that I know that E&M provides a new sort of neurological framework in how we think about relationships, marriage, procreation, community, leadership, matriarchy, intimacy, safety, security. I want us to talk about this because when we look at what E&M offers, it creates a sort of flexible family model that's also extremely secure if you do it right, if you do it with intention, if you do it with care. I do not recommend E&M for people who are not honest. If you're not honest with yourself or honest with the people in your life, it's going to be hard for you to do E&M really well. I think the best possibilities with E&M are when folks are able to be truly honest. I'm biased because, like I say, I'm a sapiosexual. Intimacy for me happens in the heart, but it kind of starts in the brain and in the, in the sort of creative dialectic. Like, I just love to learn and to learn with people, to explore questions and answer questions and research and just, experience like the infinity of divine intelligence, right? And so when I'm around people like that who really stimulate me on the topics that I'm most passionate about, I get excited. I want to be around them more. I want to engage with them more, right? So some of y'all are on that vibe I see in this space. Thank you so much for the kind words. Thank you so much for the love. Send y'all a kiss. Yeah, shout out to the artists. Shout out to the creative. Shout out to the thinkers. Shout out to the writers, the leaders, the dancers, the leaders that want to be in politics but are not really trying to do the political thing. Shout out to the arts councils. Shout out to the techies, the shamans, the healers, the mothers, the doulas, the midwives. Shout out to all of y'all. Shout out to the students, to the kiddos getting ready to go back into the cycle. So E&M is about relationships for me, and it's about relationship mastery. It's about learning how to be yourself in the deepest intimacy with other people. It is about exploring who you really are physically, somatically, emotionally, spiritually, right? And finding people who will support you in that to the best of their ability, right? And so if you think about E&M beyond like, physical intimacy, and you recognize that, even some couples, some families leverage E&M to help them have even non-sexual, like romantic partners outside of their marriage, right? Everything is not about sex. So some people are going to choose to have very deep emotional and even spiritual relationships with other people, and their dialogue may lean into sexuality, but they may not necessarily be, having sex, right? So some couples have like non-sexual romantic partners, right? Um, and then some have obviously sexual partners, right? But where I see like the spectrum from like queer, creative, future making love to E&M is like in the queer community, you see this long-term love. Like, queer folk know how to love you forever. They don't have to see you all the time, but they know how to love you forever. They know how to stay in community. They know how to keep tabs on each other. They know how to make sure that, each other stay safe, right? And so there's a level of intimacy in the queer space that you just don't see in other spaces, right? Because they really have had to take care of each other. And some of them have been fought through. And I think that there's there's some research on this, but even from my own observation, I do feel like there's a lot of overlap between like queer folk neurodivergence, um, and just like queer folk being designed differently as the people who really like take care of the planet. You know, like women and queer folk are the reason why we still exist. I don't think other groups, I don't think other groups like um you distracted me. I don't think other groups, if I'm still getting my train of thought correctly, I'm gonna have to stop looking at the comments. Um Other groups do not engage intimacy the same way that queer folks do, right? And so queer folks are very intimate because they've had to take care of each other, and what also because of like unique living situations, like I say, when you have to come together to like save each other, you have to pull your resources, you have to pull your money, you have to like share time efficiently, effectively, right? So this creates a whole different dynamic just in terms of how you live, right? And I'm just like kind of spitballing because I haven't lived in a necessarily like a big queer community, but I've definitely lived with queer folk, and I've observed how differently we think about community and housing and all these things, right? And so when you have these very distinct, even like family structures, right? Because these people become each other's family because they were shunned by their nuclear family. When you have this new dynamic of family, there's a lot of different questions about intimacy and like what is possible and what is allowed. And there's a lot of space for exploration and freedom to explore. This is part of what it means to be queer, I believe, is just a lot of queer folks are just very, very curious, right? And this is one of the things that moves queer culture forward is just that zest for life, that adventurous nature, that interest in like what can be, who can we be? So for queer folk, intimacy, family, sexuality, all of these things kind of blend in the space, and people stay connected long term to each other, right? And so when you see the overlap happening with like queer sexual exploration and then heteronormative folks moving into different types of sexual exploration, right? Then you have this meeting place where E&M begins to materialize, right? And you have exchange of ideas from folks who are committed to monogamy. They want man, woman, house, land, children, dog, house, car, whatever, right? They want the package, but they also want to be able to explore different things, right? And so they get curious and they look into like, what else is there? Because yeah, you've heard married people say it gets boring, right? You've heard married people talk about the importance of sex and intimacy and how hard it can be to maintain consistency with sex and intimacy when you have a child, you got bills, you work around the clock, right? And so some people find that their sexual identity evolves, it shifts because they are in a marriage, right? Whereas maybe before they got married, they were buck wild, they could have sex every day, all day. Now they're tired, they got 4 kids, and then I know some people that, they could go like rabbits even if they got 7, 8 kids. So I'm just saying. So sex is important for our health. Let's keep it stacked. Okay. Let's not pretend like we don't need to have sex, right? But the question is, how do we direct that energy? How do we harness that energy? How do we experience sex in a way that is liberating? Black Sacred Futurity. How do we experience intimacy in a way that is liberating? Sex for women, especially, and many queer folk, more feminine, maybe on the feminine side of the queer spectrum, sex begins far before you touch me, right? I talked about sapiosexuality, right? Like way before you ever touch me, we're starting the mating ritual, right? You're asking the right questions. You are curious first and foremost, right? You're asking questions that are meaningful. You're searching for truth. You're searching for depth. You want to know me. You want to study me. That is what gets someone like me attracted to a potential mate, right? And so you have that sort of initial spark, you continue in those types of conversations, and then you notice how you treat each other. You notice if you are tender with each other, right? You notice if you are kind to each other, if you take care of each other, if you look out for each other, if you materially, concretely support each other in whatever ways, right? You notice these things, and then you notice that there is an increased desire for that person, right? Different people get attracted in different ways, but I'm just giving an example of how sex is not just two people in the bed, going at it like the Western media would like to have you think. Sex is intimacy. Sex is emotional intimacy. It's physical intimacy. It's touching, it's touching somebody just on the arm softly and sweetly. It's hugging, it's hugging each other, right? All of these things, so many humans are starved to touch because of the type of like structures that we've built to live inside of that don't even give us a lot of space to be with each other, right? So we want intimacy. We need intimacy. And we only know so many ways to get it, right? Because the structure has told us if you want sex, you need to be in this package, right? Because otherwise, here are all these terrible consequences if you don't, if you don't wait until that. That's like still like the streamlined Abrahamic path, right? Amongst Muslims and Christians, keep it locked until you get that rock, right? And then now you become somebody's property, somebody's sex slave, maybe if you're very unlucky. Um, and a mother and all these things, and so we don't often get enough room, we don't get to think about how we redesign intimacy for women, right? Like we've talked a lot about being mad at men and the violence of men. Maybe I'm just talking about my algorithm, let me know if it's different for you, right? But I've seen a lot of you know gender war nonsense and red pill, just vomit, right? But everybody's lonely. Everybody's trying to get more intimacy. Everybody's starved for touch and community. And I shouldn't, be absolute like my pastor mentor would say, right? But the majority, I believe, are starved for affection, starved for intimacy, starved for touch. Because when you have sufficiency of intimacy, you are softer, you are kinder, you are sweeter, you are more patient, you do dream more, you do hope for more, right? It's natural to be electric and hopeful and positive in that way when you are touching your community and you are receiving love in all the different ways that are important to you in the way that you are designed and built. So when I talk about knowing your sexual identity and even engaging the question of whether E&M is for you, these are a lot of the things that you need to know about yourself. Like we talk about love languages, values, right? There are so many ways to learn yourself and so much to learn about yourself as a sexual being, as somebody who desires intimacy, right? Emotional intimacy, physical intimacy, even before sex, right? Knowing what gets you there is extremely helpful in understanding what type of people you need to be partnered with, what type of people you even need to be around and socializing with, right? We could talk about this as a vibrational thing, but then also it is a matter of practice and life and just who you are and who you are embodying, right? So getting to the point of figuring out if E&M is for you is about knowing yourself. And if you already have a partner, knowing your partner and understanding like what is the core of your relationship, like what brings y'all back to each other, what are the things that will make sure that your intimacy, your sense of community with each other, your closeness, your contract, your agreement, what are the things that make it so that that agreement will last, right? No matter what else happens. You have to have some sort of concrete sense of what those things are, right? Now, when you have a concrete sense of what you need, what you like, what turns you on, what excites you, what electrifies you, one that is important, and attracting your mate, to it helps you to nourish yourself, right? So some of this comes back to just sensuality, right? Before we even get to sexuality, our ability to nourish ourselves, our bodies, our beings, our souls, our spirits, right? Your ability to notice what kilo jeko farabale, what helps your heart to relax. Kofokombale, what helps you relax? What makes you feel calm no matter what's going on? What makes you feel inspired? What makes you feel excited? What warms your heart? How do you know these things unless you pay attention to what's happening in your body as you're living life, right? So all of these things are part of knowing yourself. And one of the items on my list is to talk about why ENM is becoming popular, right? And naturally, I talked about the queer movement. Obviously, Gen Z is heavily influenced by the queer movement. Gen Z is questioning everything, right? Which means that by the time Gen Alpha comes of age, the rules will have completely been rewritten. It'll be a whole new set of rules for them at the rate that they're going, right? So when we pay attention to what serves our souls and our spirits and our bodies and our well-being, then we call more of that to ourselves, right? We intend and we expect more of that. And naturally, on a vibrational science, we're going to experience more of that, right? The more we experience the more we experience it internally, the more we will experience it externally, right? So that's why we do this breath work, this visualization work, this somatic prayer here in this space, so that we can be in the practice of feeling into our desired futures more so than we are on the other stuff, right? Okay, so I'm going to pull up my notes on why it's becoming more visible, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience with dating, relationships, and there's more language for ENM, right? Because it's not to say that it never existed before. It just means ethical non-monogamy, right? Most of us have a sense of what polygamy is, multiple marriages. You know, anybody having multiple marriages. Polygamy is not necessarily one man, many women. It could be one woman, many men, other genders, right? So polygamy just means many marriages. Polygyny means a man with multiple wives. Polyandry means a woman with multiple husbands, right? And so in these structures, we've seen a lot of harm, right? We've seen a lot of polygamous structures, really polygynous structures that have been harmful to the women that participated, the wives, the children of those wives, right? We've seen how the breakdown of the African family has been exacerbated by obviously empire, and how empire intentionally disrupted the matriarchal order in West African and other African regions. And so these things fundamentally transformed how men and women related, how families related, how family systems and thus communities were designed, right? And so now, because we have such an infusion of information and of knowledge from all the different places, it is so much more accessible for us to understand better, different, healthier ways of intimacy, of exploring and experiencing intimacy, especially as Black and Brown Global South people, Indigenous people of the planet, right? And so a lot of this data is in our histories, is in our languages, it's in our stories, right, across the Global South, in terms of how people practiced these marriage structures in healthy, joyful ways that helped them flourish, right? So when I talk about ethical non-monogamy, it's not just about consent. So there's a term, consensual non-monogamy, which just means that everybody is consenting. They're agreeing to be part of this structure of multiple partners. But ethical non-monogamy, you have to sort of define what ethics means to you, right? Because not everybody's ethics are the same. My ethics are not necessarily yours. Yours are not necessarily mine. And so I believe in Ubuntu. I believe in Omoluabi, the Yoruba and African indigenous system of just taking care of each other. That's just my basic ethic, right? And so I'm always working to learn more about that. But somebody might have a Christian ethic, somebody might have a Muslim ethic, right? Somebody might have, a Yoruba cosmology and Ifa ethic, right? A lot of these ethics naturally will overlap, and we'll see a lot of universalities. But if we go by the golden rule, but when you actually love yourself and you want to be treated well, and thus you want other people to be treated well, we go by that sort of golden rule, then naturally we're going to find overlap, across all spiritual and cultural traditions, especially traditions that have been invested in survival. Okay, because here we're talking about futurity. We're not talking about self-destruction. Just keep that in mind, right? So for societies, for communities, for cosmologies that have supported growth, evolution, thriving, we will find a lot of this overlap, right? And so when I say ethical non-monogamy, I'm coming to it from an Ubuntu perspective, from a Yoruba perspective, and from a Christology perspective, because I am a Christian. I am a Christ, a Christ follower. He said if we didn't choose him, he chose us. So I could try and I do whatever else, but Christ is my daddy. So from all these different ethics, we find a universal ethic, and we come together and we say, okay, what are the ways that we should be treating each other? How should we treat each other? What should we know about each other? What does it mean to be kind? What does it mean to take care of each other? We participate in this conversation as members of a family, of a community, of a society. And we are constantly upgrading or updating the rules based on what's happening, based on what we're learning, and based on what we want to experience, right? What we aspire to as a community, as a family, as a society, right? So all of these different ethics are becoming much more visible and intertwined, right, in the world, in our collective consciousness. We all have, these black mirrors that we stare into 13 hours a day or whatever, right? We have these devices that connect us infinitely to each other, which can be a benefit or a harm, right? But if we are intentional about cosmic unity for those who are elevating the planet, then they become weapons of liberation, right? As opposed to anything else. So, because of the time that we're in, the age of Aquarius, the age of the matriarch, the age of the feminine, the divine feminine, because of this time that we're in, everything is converging. The truth is becoming more visible and palpable and tangible, right? And so we're learning better how to survive and thrive in healthy ways, in joyful ways, right? In sustainable, liberated ways. And so naturally, this would be a time where ethical non-monogamy would emerge. I see the divine feminine rising up in just all the single women who were just like, I'm not taking this anymore. I'd rather be single. So many women all over the internet talking about how they're thriving. They love single life. They have nothing can convince them to be with a man ever again because they've suffered so much. They've suffered so much harm at the hands of non-men, of child boys, that they can't even imagine the risk of another experience like that. Let that sink in. That's a very big problem, right? And so it comes back to the question of who's responsible for this? Who's responsible for fixing this? And we all are, every single last one of us, by healing ourselves within, making sure that we are part of the solution, not the problem. So that's why I do this work, to do my own healing on camera and share what I'm learning and teach myself and teach my daughter and just become a better Lord as much as I can by God's grace. So we're learning the truth is elevating, and we're starting to understand that the old structures just don't work because so many people get divorced, so many people are unhappy, so many people are getting harmed. So there's got to be something fundamentally wrong with the structure that we have been like uplifting and upholding for all these centuries, right? The monogamous man, woman, children, dog structure. It works very well for some people. It doesn't work so great for everyone. And part of the reason it doesn't work so well for everyone is because a lot of the people who are under a monogamous structure were drilled, programmed with ideas that told them that that was the only way. They're terrified of anything else because nobody has taught them that something else is possible or safe, right? But they're learning, we're all learning that the traditional, so-called traditional ways are not really that safe either. So we're just choosing to be alone. And I don't know about you, but I did a little bit of math and I just noticed that if men and women don't get together, then the human race dies. I don't know. Anybody else notice that possibility? So I'm just trying to do my little part to keep the human race alive. Sex, 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 sex. Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Sex has to happen if we're going to stay on this planet. So, how is sex going to happen between a gender or a species, a part of the species that is terrified of the other part of the species that they're supposed to make babies with? I mean, they do say, Bobby Hemmett and some of these scientists have argued that women have historically been able to get themselves pregnant. I don't know. I haven't tried it. I am not part of the experiment, but if that's true, niggas gonna have to step it up for real. Okay, so the idea is that we have to come back together in healthy ways. We have to find healthy pathways back to each other to maintain our access to each other and our intimacy with each other. We have to heal the rift, right? Y'all are so sweet. We have to heal the rift. And so you heal the rift within yourself. If you have unhealed hurt from somebody from the opposite gender or another gender, and notice that you find yourself treating people poorly because they are of that particular gender expression or cultural group or whatever it is, you deal with that within yourself. You navigate that. Maybe you get a therapist to help you. Maybe you get a shaman to help you. Maybe you get a pastor, an imam, a friend, right? But it tends to help for us to assess, look within, ask the questions, express it. The opposite of depression is not joy, it's expression, according to one of my favorite writers. Y'all are so sweet. Thank you for the kind words. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for the new subscriptions. We're at 200. Let's get to 2,000. When are we going to get to 2,000? Let's plan for that. Okay, so ENM is rapidly growing as a possible relationship structure. You see a lot of monogamous couples that are exploring it, that are trying it out. Some are doing it very well. You see couples turning into polycules, I think they're called. And then you see folks who just have really loose networks of poly families, right? And you notice how in the structures where it's healthy and it works and it lasts, people tend to be honest with each other. They tend to have true love for one another, right? They tend to cooperate and collaborate very well, whether it's their ideas, their businesses, their work, their finances. They're truly building lives together. They're life partners, and the type of life partners that understand that even if their marriage or their relationship changes form, they will still be able to benefit and bless each other, right? They can still, right? Like people are learning that it doesn't require just a ring for you to remain committed to another human being for the rest of your life, for you to remain committed to serving them and loving them in kind ways, whether it's a sexual relationship or not, right? And so these are some of the critical like facts. This is some of the critical data that we've gotten so far away from that structures like ENM remind us of. Because if we're not focused on the labels and on the packages and on the ceremonies, but we're focused on the actual intimacy that's it's like happening, that's being experienced between you and I. That is how we heal ourselves, our inner hurt, our inner worlds, and each other in our communities. We have to actually face it to fix it, right? Well, you got to face within yourself. Who do you got to face within yourself, outside of yourself? Who do you got to forgive in the meditation? If you go back on my videos, you'll see I did a how to meditate or how to forgive. Sorry. So we're going to wrap this up. We're going to be talking about this topic for a bit. How do you know if ENM is for you? I'm still learning and sharing what I know, but I want to jump to a few questions that I think you should really ask yourself. I've given a good number of questions as we've been talking, but I want to kind of go down the list. So I was on Hinge. I sometimes, it's like the only dating app that I use, and sometimes I'll be on there for like 5 minutes, and I'll be like, "Oh, didn't see anything interesting. All right, I'm uninstalling." Right? And then there have been times I've been on there and I've gotten a lot of great connections and interesting people. And at one point, I had ENM in my, in sort of my relationship preferences. And I noticed that, of course, I got a lot of men, showing interest. I was open to ENM and, queer relationships. So I had a lot of people hitting me up, like, starting out with just like a general interest. But I just remember this guy asking me pretty quickly, what made me get into ENM or what made me open to ENM. But his intellectual like capacity was not such that we could even have the level of conversation that I would need to have with somebody to even consider ENM with them, right? This conversation that we're having here, I hope, is giving you a sense of the level that we're talking about, right? How do we take care of each other? What are the actual structures and policies and agreements and norms that ensure that we are held to a standard of taking care of each other, of making sure that each other is safe and well and thriving? These are some of the basic agreements that I'm talking about when I'm talking about relationships, especially when I'm talking about ENM. Do you take care of me? Do I take care of you? How do we do that? How do we maintain that? Right. And so, are you a caring person? Are you a kind person? Do you need to work on that? Right. Like, are you honest with yourself? Like I mentioned before, I think it's so problematic when people are in intimate relationships and not honest with each other. And I know it's not always easy to tell the truth because some things are hard. We've been through things we don't necessarily want to talk about or share. We're feeling things that we might feel shame around. Right. But when we're able to practice radical honesty, when we're able to at least move towards radical honesty, if we can't do it overnight, right? When we're able to do that, there's so much intimacy in that, right? There's so much closeness in that. There's the weight that you feel that drops off your shoulders when you're able to just offload something, to just share the truth about your experience and receive love in response, receive kindness in response, receive support, receive encouragement, receive a container, a space where that knowledge, that embodiment, that experience is held for you, where someone just allows you to be and to exist, right? This is the kind of intimacy that I advocate for. So you want to ask yourself, if you're interested in ENM, why? Why are you interested? What is it about it? So this guy that I'm talking about, literally, people want to jump to like threesomes. It's like, are you worthy of a threesome? Like, have you earned the right to desire a threesome? Like, who have you been taking care of? So it's a conversation, but people want this for different things. And I think it's really important, if you're exploring it, if you're curious about it, to know what it is about A&M that is attractive to you, what it is about you that you feel like you would be happy and healthy and thriving in an E&M situation. You also have to acknowledge like your good and bad tendencies in relationships. You have to be conscious of how you tend to engage with people versus how people engage with you, right? How you navigate certain tensions and conflicts in relationship structures, right? What kind of person are you in relationship, in romantic relationship, right? And so studying that and paying attention to that, like, what are the patterns? What are the things that have happened repeatedly in the relationships that you've been in, good or not so good patterns, right? How do you pay attention to those as learning opportunities, right? To help you better understand how to show up in a way that helps your relationships to thrive, right? None of us is perfect, but when we work on our practice of being in a relationship, then we're able to get better at it, right? All right. I hope my sound is still good. I got some light. You gotta let me know if anything is off. So, why do you want E&M? Yeah, and I love this question. Does this experience expand me or diminish me? Right? Like, are you entering a relationship for expansion, for growth, for evolution, for bettering yourself, your life, and the lives of others? Or is it like, I just want to have an additional sexual partner? Right? No judgment, but you have to be honest with yourself. You got to tell me, but be honest with yourself. Right? Can I tell the truth here? Yeah. So one of the people I've been approached by married men, obviously forever, right? And I have had situations where, like, man, I'd be like, man, I would be a second wife to that nigga, because he was that, that worthy in my mind at the time, right? But I knew that the only way I could even possibly consider that is if his wife, his first wife, was all about it, and it's only when women are invested in the polygamy or in the polygyny that it can thrive for everybody, I believe. I don't believe that, I think we've been tricked into believing that we live in a male centered world, whereas women really are the center. We are the axis of this planet. And so the more we recognize that and know that about ourselves and love that about ourselves and tap into that power, the more we flourish, right? So anybody that ever tries to turn you against a fellow woman, tries to make you compete with a fellow woman, just cut it off. Just nip it at the bud. Like, we're not playing that game. I take care of my sisters. I take care of the women around me. I love women. I love girls, right? This is who we have to be. We take care of each other. They can't harm us. The patriarchy depends on us beefing with each other. The patriarchy depends on us being envious of each other. The patriarchy depends on us catfighting with each other. But when we as women say, fuck all of that, I got your back no matter what. I'm not gonna let you get away with fuck shit, but I'm gonna have your back and I'm gonna teach you and I'm gonna hold you close. I'm gonna take care of you. I'm gonna look out for you. I'm gonna educate you. I'm gonna show you what I know. That's what it means for women. That's what it means for women to be in community. Chris is saying you can't hear. Are you sure? Let me snap. Do I need to get my other microphone out? Give me a thumbs up if you can, but I'm gonna grab another microphone. Okay, give me a second. Oh shit. Whoop, whoop, whoop. I just had to take care of something. Hope I didn't break it. Okay. All right, y'all. Still can't hear? How about now? Can you hear me now? These things are like $6. They're so cheap. So clearly. Is this better? Let me know if you can hear me now. I need a thumbs up before I get back into it. But yeah, you got to know what, yay, thank you. You got to know why you're exploring E&M and what you want to get out of it. You have to be really clear on that. And you have to understand what kind of person you are in a relationship and how you are meant to show up. I had somebody ask me, yeah, I'm absolutely smitten with a particular person in my life right now. And this person asked me how I wanted to be loved. They said to me, like, they wanted to know me well enough to know how I wanted to be loved and to make sure that they could show up for me in the way that I desire to be loved and cared for. And I think that that is just the most, it was just such a beautiful, sort of vibe and message to receive. But I thought it's also like should be the default. This should be how we engage with people. How do you want to be loved? What do you need? Right? When we engage from that place and in that way, we have a completely different type of, you know, energy and relationship between us. So that is where relationship really should be and should go. And we have to ask ourselves, who do we have to become? What do we have to change to get to a place where everything that we're doing is about giving, right? Not taking. We know the pleasure in the giving, right? The pleasure in the giving, the enjoyment of sharing yourself, of sharing your heart, of sharing your energy, your flow, your highest vibration, right? When you get to enjoy that, you naturally attract more of that from other people, right? And that's what intimacy should be like. That's when it feels really good, right? Without too much performance or, competing or wondering. It's just, you just get to show up, and then you let the next person show up and you're kind and you're present and you just, give them some love and appreciation and recognition. I want to talk about recognition on here very soon, but we're getting to that. Okay. So yeah, I think like for married couples and even folks who are couples that are not married, right? Like it's so important to be honest with each other, to be honest with each other about what you need and why. And it's important to have grace, right? And to recognize that my partner might say something to me in terms of what they need, and that thing might make me uncomfortable. It might make me feel a little insecure, but I can also still be here holding on to the ways that they show up, the actions that they take, the love that they show, right? And I can know that this person is with me, they have my back, and they're going to continue to have my back. And I'm going to try to work with them. I'm going to try to meet them in the middle. I'm going to have as much conversation as it takes to try to meet at a place where both of us can be in agreement. We can be in the same place, on the same place, right? On the same page. So I think it's like really worth sitting with your own question of honesty. Like, how honest are you with yourself? How honest are you with others? And how can you get to a place where you can truly feel safe in the truth? Because I noticed that what tends to create harm and violence in relationships is either that people are lying to themselves or they just don't know, they don't realize the cost of dishonesty, right? A lot of us, y'all be distracted. A lot of us default to just making shit up. This is what I said to a friend one time. Just niggas just be defaulting to making stuff up. Oh shoot! Did I just damage my? Did I just damage this thing? I think it just overheated. Let me see if the other thing will. Whoosh! Literally trying to burn me. Wow. Wowzers. Okay. Let's see if this does anything. It feels like it's. I don't know. Is it fried? No, it's not fried. Okay. Well, I think something's gonna have to change with that. All right. So thank you for your patience. So yeah. So the bottom line is ask yourself these questions. And if you're in a place where you're really able to be honest with each other, then you just set the rules. You set the ground rules. You try to understand like what it takes to protect yourself in the ENM structure as a partner to another partner, and you try to understand like what you need, what kind of reassurance you might need, or just what kind of support you might need from them emotionally, especially to be able to carry like that sense of safety forward into the arrangement, right? Some people just do this stuff to explore. They know that they're locked in tight. They don't care. Nothing can break them. Blah blah blah. Right? They're just gonna try different things. And then some people really like move towards potentially having additional people join their marriage or their family structure, right? Like people who actually meet their kids and become part of their kids' lives, right? So, and their kids actually know what, what type of nature of the relationship. um so there's a whole spectrum in there, and I think it's worth asking yourselves where you're at in that spectrum, right? What are you open to? What is the max that you would be willing to like even consider, right? um and again, always keep coming back to the why, right? Like, is this additional experience worth the risk of the love that I have right now, the relationship that I have right now, right? Like, what is, how do you weigh the two? What is the most sort of compelling reason for you to, what is the most compelling reason for you to engage in these additional relationships, right? What are more compelling reasons for you to not engage and to stay just monogamous, right? So these are some of the questions that people got to ask themselves. But I think when you know about like love languages and values and just like goals and vision for your lives, these things really help you to ask the right questions, to better understand where you're going together and how this ENM arrangement can and may influence where you're going together and how you get there, right? Okay, I think that we've covered a good amount for today. If this was enjoyable for you, I'd love for you to stick around. It would be great to see you come back and be part of this community. If you want to meet other people in this community, I highly encourage you to join the Substack as a paid member. We will be having virtual and eventually at some point in-person events, I'm sure. If you want to work with me as a consultant, I do tech consulting, storytelling, strategy, all the good things. You can email us at team@noirlabs.org, noirlabs.org/Olori to find out about what I've been doing and learn more. Also check out noirpress.org, read some of our articles, our thought leadership, and you can see some of my writing in Time Africa as well. Shout out to the team, shout out to Uduak, shout out to Ruby, shout out to Aisha, shout out to Afo, shout out to Umar, shout out to all the people who touched and put some magic on Portal X and the whole platform. Go to portalx.space, create yourself an account, start chatting with the superpower calculator, find out about who you're meant to be and your purpose and your gifts and how you can turn them into a thriving life. All right. I love y'all. It's been a pleasure. We'll talk.